Chapter 9. Bye bye. Eric, or whatever that thing was in front of me, raised his right hand with five spindly fingers and started waving bye bye. I was so confused that I barely noticed him aiming his blaster directly between my eyes. Then, just before he pulled the trigger, he got distracted. I followed his gaze. Next to me, in the shiny, metallic surface of the wall, I could make out the reflection of a hand sticking out of a box, waving wildly. Mr. Gas Mask adjusted his aim from me to the reflection and shot a red laser. Zing! As soon as he shot, Eric jumped out of the box and ran at me. Gas Mask shot at Eric, or at least he tried to shoot at Eric. Instead, he shot Eric's reflection. Zing! Woomph! I wheezed as the real Eric hit me in the ribs and tackled me behind the box. The thing pointed its blaster at us. Zing! Eric blasted the window next to us. From the ground, I could feel the first rumbling of a rocket taking off. I looked out the shattered window to see that we were moving. Come on, Eric grunted as he jumped out of the window. Before I could argue that this would be a lot better with jetpacks, the alien rolled left to get a clean shot at me. I took a deep breath, ran, and jumped. Zing! The good news was that the alien missed. The bad news was that I found myself plummeting to my death. Again, the Statue of Liberty rocketed past me, and I heard the screams of 1,000 aliens discovering that they were getting a free ride to the moon. Then, just before everything disappeared in a flash of light, I saw a speck wearing a jetpack fly from the Statue of Liberty's crown. Was that another one of your schemes where you don't tell me half the plan? I yelled after we reappeared in the water off of Liberty Island. Eric shook his head as he was treading water. I don't know what that was. When I got to the top of the statue, I heard something behind me. I thought it was you not following instructions, so I hid in a box to scare you. Instead, it was some weird alien wearing a gas mask. Wait, you've never seen that alien in this game before? Never. That's creepy. Yeah, super creepy. Anyways, it started poking around the room like it was looking for you, so I stayed hidden. Oh my gosh. Then, when it couldn't find me, it strapped on the jetpack and waited for you. I figured our plan would work just as well without jetpacks, so I decided to stay hidden and warn you to jump out the window when you showed up. Wait, waving wildly from a box was supposed to be your way of telling me to jump out the window? Of course, wasn't it obvious? I squinted at him. I'm sorry I didn't know the hand signal for jump out of the Statue of Liberty. Well, everything worked out just fine, didn't it? Whatever. Can we just get through this before any creepy surprise aliens pop up? Definitely. We swam toward the shore of Liberty Island as fast as possible because we are not the world's best athletes to begin with, and because we had blasters strapped to our arms, it was possibly the slowest, splashiest, most pathetic swim the world has ever seen. When we finally reached the shore, we shook ourselves off and walked toward the glowing portals that had appeared in the place of the Statue of Liberty. Eric walked through the level 4 portal first. Whoosh! Then I walked through. Whoosh! Then as I was falling through the blackness, I could have sworn I heard the faint sound of a third person entering the portal. Whoosh! Chapter 10, Captain Eric. I'm driving. Driving what? I asked as I looked around to figure out where we'd landed this time. Oh, great. A swamp. A thick, smelly swamp. I picked up my right foot. Thwack! The worst. I was standing in 6 inches of muck, which meant I'd be walking in wet socks all day. I can handle snow. I can handle volcanoes. I can even handle house-sized sand monsters. I cannot handle wet socks. I'm driving. I called it. Eric did not have wet socks because he did not get teleported into the swamp. Instead, he ended up on a future Y looking tank 10 feet away, and he was calling it at the top of his lungs. No way, that thing's going to get stuck in 2 seconds. Not this tank, Eric yelled. He disappeared into the machine, and 5 seconds later, it roared to life. Vrow! The tank lifted a foot off the ground thanks to 4 small rockets on the bottom. Eric popped his head back up. Is this cool or what? Hey, I want to drive that. Maybe you should have thought of that before I called it. You can shoot the cannon though. That's pretty cool. I folded my arms across my chest. Oh, really? Just then, Eric's eyes got huge. He grabbed the cannon, swiveled it around, and blasted something right behind me. I turned around just in time to see a 20-foot crocodile alien that had been jumping out of the swamp. It disappeared in a flash of light. I had to admit, it was pretty cool. You gonna jump on, or you gonna get eaten? I rolled my eyes, sloshed over the tank, and climbed up. That's the spirit, Eric said with a salute. Now that you've boarded my vessel, I expect you to refer to me only as Captain Eric. Your vessel? I'd rather take my chances with the crocodiles. That's no way to talk to your superior, first mate Jesse. I turned the cannon around and blasted Eric. He vaporized and reappeared in the driver's seat. Eric nodded, point taken. Then he flicked a couple of switches and grabbed the steering wheel. Let's see what this thing can do. What it did was accelerate from 0 to 100 miles per hour in a quarter of a second. Ah! I said as my right arm, which had been operating the cannon, nearly got ripped from its socket. I flew backward into the muck with a giant splat. Now, in addition to wet socks, I'd also be spending the day in wet underwear. I climbed back on and pointed the cannon at Eric. Watch it, Captain. He accelerated slower this time, but couldn't resist doing a donut once he found a clearing that was big enough. Then we took off through the level. After 5 frustrating minutes of trying to aim at aliens while Eric swerved back and forth, I realized why they don't let 12-year-olds drive cars and why they certainly don't let 11-year-olds drive tanks. Would you drive this straight for 1 second? I'm working on it. Crunch. And stop hitting trees. I can either drive straight or avoid trees, but I can't do both. I sighed as yet another crocodile jumped out of the swamp and ate us whole. We reappeared at the beginning of the level for the 4th time. Get out, I said. No, wait, I can't. Get out. Eric huffed and swapped spots with me. I smiled. Now that I'm driving, I expect you to refer to me as Captain Jesse. He blasted me. After I had reappeared, we set off. I was actually not much better at driving than Eric, but because he was so much better than me at shooting, we made it through the level in no time. Eric cheered every time he zapped an alien, and I whooped every time I got to use a fallen log as a ramp. I was having a blast. A full blast. If driving a car is even a little bit like driving a tank, adults should be way happier on the highway than they seem. The trees overhead got thicker and thicker until we ended up in an enclosed swamp that was almost pitch black. What now? I asked. This is the boss, Eric said. Are we supposed to be able to see him? It's a crocodile with glowing eyes that light up everything when he emerges from the swamp. Terrific. We waited in silence for a full minute. Nothing. Hey, Eric? What? Cool boss. He should be here by now. He always shows up right away. Well, maybe we needed to get like a key or something. Eric looked at me with scorn. A key? What could a key possibly do to help us find a crocodile in the middle of a swamp? That doesn't even make sense. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know a game that turns the Statue of Liberty into a rocket ship is supposed to make sense. Whatever. I guess we can see if there's something we missed. I turned the tank around and slowly started driving back through the dark swampland. That's when we heard it, a hissing noise up ahead. Is that something? I asked. I don't know what that is. See. Shh, listen. It sounds almost like a hissing voice, or actually, multiple hissing voices. Yes. See. Yesy. I turned to Eric. Is that what they're saying? Eric. Captain Eric. My stomach did a somersault. Captain Eric, Jesse, they were saying our names. Oh my gosh, bro. Chapter 11, Speed Run. Here's the complete list of things that are creepier than hearing aliens say your name in a dark swamp. 1, nothing. That's it. Nothing can ever be creepier than that. Yes, see, Eric. Yes, see, Eric. Eric panicked and started blasting wildly ahead. It did no good. If anything, the voices only got louder. Yes, see, Eric. Yes, see, Eric. I put the tank in reverse and we started slowly backing up. Both Eric and I remained silent as we drove back toward the boss area. Soon, it was almost completely dark and the voices sounded closer than ever. Yes, see, Eric. I felt Eric's hand on my shoulder. I tried to confront him. I know, buddy. We're going to figure out a way out of here. But how? Eric's voice sounded far away, not like he was lost in thought or something, but actually a few feet farther than I remembered. I looked down at the hand on my shoulder. My eyes had started getting used to the dark, so I could just make out that this hand was bigger than expected. Eric? A face leaned in real close to me, an adult face, making a shh motion with his finger to his mouth. I did not shh. I did quite the opposite of shooing. Ah! Suddenly, the voices stopped. Then two eyes from the swamp lit up. They illuminated our tank. They illuminated me, and now Eric screaming like a chorus of small girls. They illuminated an angry man tearing me away from the steering wheel. They illuminated an army of aliens blocking our path out of the swamp. And they illuminated their leader, Mr. Gas Mask. Our tank thief slammed the vehicle into drive and took off toward the army. The glowing crocodile ahead opened its mouth to swallow us whole. Hold on, the man yelled back at Eric and me. A nanosecond before the crocodile could chomp down on us, the man pressed a series of buttons and our entire tank did a barrel roll away from the mouth. You never told me we could do that, I yelled it to Eric. I never knew we could. Now that we had narrowly avoided the glowing crocodile, we found ourselves plowing through the army behind him. Don't shoot anything, the man yelled back to us. That seemed hard to do since aliens were now grabbing onto the tank and trying to climb up. Before any of them could get too far, our driver found a log, used it as a ramp, and hit the thrusters in midair to turn our tank into a flying missile. As we soared over the heads of our attackers, the driver did another barrel roll to shake the remaining aliens off our tank. We landed with a splash behind the alien army and tore back toward the beginning of the level with the aliens behind us. While Eric and I had driven with all the grace of a dizzy cow, this man handled the swamp like he was born there. Every time a new crocodile jumped out of the water, he was ready with a zig or a zag or a flying barrel roll. Unfortunately, in addition to the new aliens jumping out of the water in front of us, the army behind us had regrouped and was gaining ground. Just as the aliens started grabbing for the tank again, our driver jerked the steering wheel hard right, and we zipped down a small path that I hadn't noticed on our first run through the level. The path led us into a small dead end swamp. We were trapped. Our only hope would be to turn around and try jumping over the army again. But our driver was not interested in slowing down. If anything, he sped up, directly into a rock. Ah! Eric and I screamed as we closed our eyes and held each other, bracing for impact. But we never hit the rock. Instead, we drove straight through it. When we didn't explode into a giant fireball, I opened my eyes. We continued driving through blackness, complete blackness. I couldn't even see any kind of ground underneath us. The only thing I can make out was what looked like the bottom of a swamp above us. The man had driven us underneath the level. After a few minutes, we popped back up, but we were no longer in the swampland. We emerged through a waterfall in Hawaii. Our driver didn't slow down. He drove straight into the ocean, went underneath the level again, and popped out of the ivy-colored outfield wall at the Wrigley Field in Chicago. We drove like crazy through secret passages, in and out of more levels, the Golden Gate Bridge, the Nevada Desert, and the Atlantic City Boardwalk. Finally, at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, we slowed to a stop. For the first time since the aliens started talking, everything was totally silent. Our driver parked the tank and turned to say something to Eric and me. Before he can get a word out, Mr. Gas Mask jumped up behind him and grabbed his neck. I raised my blasters. Our driver's eyes got huge. "Don't shoot," I shot. Time literally slowed down. The alien dodged the blast by leaning backward almost in half. Then, just as the blast was going over his body, the alien lifted up one finger of one hand. The blast consumed his finger. Before we could understand what had just happened, time went back to normal and the alien stood up again. He looked at his hand, gave us a four-finger wave bye-bye, and beamed himself into the sky. Our driver, who'd fallen to the ground, stood back up and shook his head. "You have no idea what you have just did."